What you say about what happened in Gaza was not, the land that was handed over to the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, they are not in charge of Gaza right now. What happened on October 7th was not the Palestinian Authority. You will agree with me on that, right?
No, you're missing the point. We handed it over to Mahmoud Abbas, but he couldn't hold the control. And Hamas took over because of popular support. So are you now expecting us to redo that now in Judea and Samaria and have another massive butchery of Jews, this time in central Israel?
Tell me what winning looks like. In other words, there's no question that the IDF tactically has the ability to do whatever it is that you're going to end up doing in Gaza. Nobody doubts that. Here's the question. What does winning look like? Once Hamas is beaten, what happens next?
Well, we want to see all the Hamas terrorists either killed or expelled from Gaza to other places, and all our 35 hostages released. Then we can create some civil administration there. We have no territorial claim for Gaza because this is not about a territorial claim, contrary to what you had inferred before. It is not about a Palestinian state. Israel doesn't want the land there. We've got no claims. So we're going to have to eradicate every remnant of Hamas, and then we'll be able to establish something new.
Okay, well, as a person who was the prime minister for 12 months in Israel, maybe it will be again, who knows, let's talk about that. You have contended that there is no viable negotiating partner on the other side. It is widely acknowledged, and I think you and I might agree on one thing this morning, and that is that over the years, Israel bolstered Hamas as a means to sideline moderate Palestinian leaders. In 2019, Haaretz reported that Netanyahu reportedly said to his party, anyone who wants to thwart the establishment of a Palestinian state has to support bolstering Hamas. This is part of our strategy, to isolate the Palestinians in Gaza from the Palestinians in the West Bank. A more recent document from the Israeli Ministry of Intelligence that was published by Plus 972 magazine just a couple days ago emphasizes this further, that the Palestinian Authority assuming control of Gaza would be the worst possible outcome because it would remove one of the, quote, central obstacles preventing the establishment of a Palestinian state. So what happens then? Who do you talk to? It's not the PLO. It's not the Palestinian Authority. To whom do you discuss the civil administration of Gaza?
It'll be a bit like after the American victory on Japan and Germany. There'll be a transitory period of some civil administration until we can allow them to create a viable leadership from within. I just want to point out again, because somehow you seem to not acknowledge this. In 2006, we handed Gaza over to the PLO, to Mahmoud Abbas, that you are now inferring that he's a viable partner. But he then lost it to
Hamas. Not mine. Don't put words in my mouth, sir. Don't put words in my mouth, just like you don't want me to put words in your mouth. This morning in a meeting with Secretary Blinken, he asserted that the Palestinian Authority is the sole legitimate government of the Palestinian people. That's his words, not mine. I put that back to you.
Okay, and on that we have a disagreement because, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. We cannot gamble the security of Israelis again. Right now there's roughly 10, 15 babies held hostage by Hamas. As we speak right now, Avigail, right, she's 4 years old. She saw her parents, Smadar and Roi, butchered in front of her eyes, and her brother and sister were hiding in a cupboard. She is now alone, held hostage by Hamas in some tunnel. We're talking about the worst savagery. These are not militants. This is not a legitimate entity. This is the worst unfathomable barbarism that we can imagine. And we have to only do one thing: get the hostages home by defeating them.
Yeah, I mean, the imagery, the stories that came out of October 7th, the children, the women, the elderly, it has had an effect on the Israeli psyche.
It has.
What happens with that?
This is a real trauma. I mean, Ali, imagine your own daughter being kidnapped and, God forbid, worse, raped and kidnapped. And then, you know, I spoke to one of the rescue people. He came into a house in one of the kibbutzim. and found an 8-year-old girl whose arm was severed and she lost blood, and he was too late. She was breathing her last breaths of a horror. This is something that we can never let happen again. We have a full terror state on our border, and we cannot allow this Al-Qaeda, if you will, continue. And we're going to continue, and we do expect our friends in the United States of America to not apply pressure on us to stop before we get the job done, before we eliminate Hamas.
I mean, I've covered a lot of bad things in my life, and I've covered all the, the school shootings in the United States. I've rarely seen anything as bad as I saw on October 7th. And you're right. When you see those images, you do think of your own children, your family, my Jewish family. Do you think of the Palestinian kids?
I do. And I think that the only way to end the misery of everyone is to eliminate Hamas. If this war ends with Hamas standing on its feet, the misery of both sides will continue. There's just no way to end this horrible cycle without eliminating Hamas. Not unlike World War II, where we had to eliminate the Nazi regime, even though it involved a lot of pain on the German side, but there were no hesitations there because this regime is just a horrible, murderous regime that's killing its own people.
Do you see a way in achieving the change of regime without making the cauldron that boil over again? There's no Palestinian in Gaza who is going to feel better about Israeli neighbors after the civilian deaths that we've seen. We're at about 10,000 today. I'm not asking you to, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know. If I knew, I would suggest it to you. I don't know. But is there a way in which you can achieve the goals that you are talking about today, and whatever vengeance and retribution needs to be had for October 7th, or justice, without 10,000 Palestinians being dead?
It's Hamas who's killing its own people by hiding them in the tunnels.
But that's not true. That's not entirely true.
Oh, it is entirely true because if you place your rockets in schools, in homes, and you use human shields, you effectively are killing your own people. So it's not only genocide against Israelis, it's self-genocide. These are savage
you know that we've spoken to war crimes people who
killing,
tell us that's not how courts would see it.
That's exactly what's
happening. Mr. Bennett, I know that Israel doesn't subscribe to the ICC, so it may not be relevant to you, but that's actually not a globally interpreted legal interpretation of war crimes. That's just not true.
That's the fact.
You can't kill people and then say it's Hamas killing them. You can say Hamas put them in a position where they're being killed, but at the moment it's Israeli rockets and attacks and bombs and cluster munitions that are killing them, right? We can debate the fine points of this, but there is a way to not do this. Do you agree?
No, I profoundly disagree, because this will go on forever until we eliminate Hamas. Right now, they sometimes are even shooting at the humanitarian corridors to prevent their own people from escaping harm's way. But Israel is bending over backwards to allow as many Gaza civilians move away from harm's way in northern Gaza, which is the theater of operation. We're doing everything according to international law. Everything, more than expected, more than America ever did in World War II or in Afghanistan or in Iraq. We're doing everything, but enough is enough. And if we want this to end, we have to do away with this Al-Qaeda state on our border. Imagine 9/11 and a day later, Al-Qaeda wasn't in Afghanistan, but in Mexico. What would America do?
Naftali Bennett, we have more to talk about. Thank you for taking the time to have a conversation with me this morning. I hope we can continue it.
Thank you.